everybody, my name is Brooklyn, otherwise known as the Dramatic Otaku. Hello everybody, my name is Brooklyn, otherwise known as the Dramatic Otaku. So warm, I was gonna start off this with a cardigan. Not happening. Not happening anymore. I wanted to show off my new cat cardigan, but it's too hot. It's too fucking hot for this shit. Anyway, hello everybody, my name is Brooklyn, otherwise known as the Dramatic Otaku, and the Boy and the Heron. A wonderful new addition to Studio Ghibli's catalogue. What is supposed to be Hayao Miyazaki's final film, The Boy and the Heron, otherwise known as How Do You Live, is certainly a fantastic send-off to the director. I cannot wait for his next film in a couple years. Because, you know, this is like his third or fourth final film. Jokes aside, I really enjoyed The Boy and the Heron. I am going to put on my glasses to actually properly read my script. I genuinely really enjoyed The Boy and the Heron. I purposely made sure not to look into it so that I could enjoy it more the same way that I went about Suzume. And I pretty much went into this film being like, hey, this is gonna be either gonna make me cry, it's gonna make me laugh. I've been on a Studio Ghibli binge recently, mostly focusing on Miyazaki's films. If you hear some chaos, it is my cat attacking some tissue paper that this dress came in because I recently got this dress. Anyway, I knew it would be very fun, and that's all I knew going into this film. I thought, genuinely afterwards, I thought it was so much fun, visually stunning like always, and a refreshing step up from the previous Ghibli film, Earwig the Witch. The film itself is a real reminder of movies such as Arrietty, Howl's Moving Castle, and even Laputa to some degree. It's not action heavy, but it is certainly fun, and as always, I'm left with more questions than there should be at the end of any god-given fucking movie. So before I begin my actual proper review, I actually have a couple of disclaimers. First of all, the positives, what I liked about the film itself is a ramble. From the night that I watched the film, which was last night, I was very tired and just trying to remember everything. In that part of the video, I say Mazuhito a lot. The main character's name is Mahito. I don't know where the zoo came from, so if you hear me say Mazuhito, I mean Mahito. Anyway, second of all, obvious spoilers for the film ahead. This is a review and I will be recapping the story in a second, very briefly. And 3, there is a lot of bias here. I very much love Studio Ghibli, and I actually do not have a lot of critiques of the film itself because this is done really, really well. Like, out of a lot of all the Ghibli films in the past, this is honestly probably a new classic to me. Like, out of the entire Studio Ghibli catalogue, this is incredibly impressive. But yeah, as compared to other films, I'm not super critical, and this film kind of goes to show why Ghibli is this like titan of Japanese animation and Japanese films, sort of stuff like that, you know? So, the story, this is very brief. I wrote this yesterday when I was incredibly tired, and it's also a little bit complex to describe the story of Boy and the Heron, because it starts off very slow, gets very fast, and a lot fucking happens. Much like in stories similar to Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. So, the actual story itself. Set in mid to late 30s, we follow the story of Mahito, a boy whose mother recently died in a hospital fire. Mahito's father moves them both out to the countryside where his mother grew up to meet his future stepmother, who also happens to be his aunt. It took me a while to realize that, because I was so confused as to why the maids knew that Mahito looked like his mother. That would be because his mother grew up there, and this new mother is his aunt. Anyway, during the first act, the local grey heron takes an interest in Mahito, alerting him that his mother is alive, and to follow him. After trying to kidnap Mahito, because Mahito was very confused, and being saved by Natsuko, his stepmother aunt, Mahito takes it on himself to save his mother and potentially kill the heron. when Natsuko suddenly disappears into the forest and into the tower that Mahito was trying to get, or that the heron was trying to get Mahito into. I missed the tower. The tower is very important. Pretty much the heron shows Mahito this tower, tries to get Mahito into this tower, and then when that doesn't work, goes for Natsuko, who is pregnant. The tower to try and save Natsuko. Mahito gets tricked by the heron originally and partially gives up on saving his mother because he also goes into this tower to try and save his mother. He's still on that, but after being tricked by the heron, he more so is on the mission to save Natsuko. Mahito maneuvers through the world of the tower, meeting Kiriko in her young form, the Wada Wadas, the ravenous pelicans and parakeets who eat little children, or people in general, as well as Hime, the younger version of his mother, and his great-grand uncle, the person who built the tower in the first place. It's hard to describe the journey from here, so I'm just gonna say they, at the very end, they all escape with Mahito acknowledging Natsuko as his new mother. It is very difficult to get on from there. So the next section of this video is going to be partially animated, I guess, in what I like about the film. And again, that note from before, for some reason I keep calling Mahito Mazuhito. I don't know why.
So I need to talk about the technical for this film because it is visually and auditorily spectacular. I love how quiet the first act of this film is. It is wonderful. It is very reminiscent of other Ghibli films such as Grave of the Fireflies or Arrietty. I love silence in Studio Ghibli films, and the first half of this film is so quiet. Something that you do not hear all that often in films nowadays. Everything has to have a soundtrack. So to hear something so silent on the big screen, especially this year, fantastic, amazing. I love it. I love the blending of 2D and 3D in this film. This is what Earwig and the Witch should have been in terms of the animation quality, and not just a 3D film, because the blending of the classic Ghibli style with the digital animation style with 3D animation for the backgrounds and settings, and only the backgrounds and settings, with like the original like watercoloring style of Ghibli also blended into the backgrounds is amazing. The moving shots in this film, fantastic. Even the simplest stuff of them walking through a hallway, that being like computer generated with animation on top, usually looks shit in a lot of films. Not this one. This blended so nicely. Also, the stylistic approach to the very start of the film when there's the fire at the hospital. Oh my god, that was gorgeous. And the fact that it keeps being brought up throughout the film, absolutely stunning, absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing. The rest of the audio is unsalvageable, so I've had to write down what was there. I like how the film unravels its plot to you. It's very hard to explain what I mean by that, but I'd say the best way that I can explain it is also in my next point on the character design as well, specifically of Kiriko, one of the old maids in the first half of the film, but in the second half of the film, you find out her backstory, that she is essentially from the Tower World, and was brought out by Hime, otherwise known as Mahito's mother. That is something that gets unraveled by plot points essentially throughout the film, but you can tell that the young version of Kiriko is the old lady that we see that sort of disappears for half the film. I love the Wada Wadas and the budgies. Also, a point from within the film when Mahito and Hime go outside the tower for the first time in sort of the future world, for Hime, Mahito's father runs up towards Mahito as these budgies sort of pour out in front of him, and when Mahito disappears again, Mahito's father goes, "My son is Budgies," in a very depressed voice. I loved that so much. That was so fucking funny. There is an act system in Ghibli, but something that I love is that you tend to forget about it. Like, it's there, you can tell it's there, but during the moment when you're watching the film, you forget the fuck about it because the constant action and constant intrigue of the film. Like in other movies like Suzume, you can tell there's an act system and it's very evident when you're watching the film, but not so much in Ghibli. Like, I thought about it once throughout the entire film and then completely fucking forgot about it. I also loved, and this is something that I love the most because this is supposed to be Miyazaki's final film for Ghibli, all of the allusions to all the other Studio Ghibli films, from, for example, the boats of the spirits in the Tower World being a direct allusion to the plains in Porco Rosso. We have the aesthetics of the tower itself being similar to Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away in the old woman's office, and then also in Howl's room. We've got the arches that are like the main way to talk to the great-granduncle of Mahito. Very similar to the train station in Spirited Away, and I also believe the train station in Grave of the Fireflies as well. That I just noted that immediately when I saw it. The Warawaras are obviously very similar to the Kodama in Spirited Away, not Spirited Away, Kodama in Princess Mononoke, as well as the little Totoro things in My Neighbor Totoro. Obviously, it's gonna be a reference to that. Almost every, like, whimsical Studio Ghibli film has something like those fucking things in it, but it visually looks most like the little tree spirits in Princess Mononoke and the little Totoro things in My Neighbor Totoro. Next, we have, obviously, then, probably the biggest thing, the cast in both the English and Japanese dub have a lot of returning members from previous Studio Ghibli films, as well as new talent, which may I say, Robert Pattinson for the Heron. When I saw that on screen, on the credits, I was so confused. 10 out of 10 choice for the voice, because oh my god, half the time I was staring at the screen, looked at all these names popping up and went, what do you mean this actor played this character? Like, I completely forgot Mark Hamill had played characters in previous films, same with Christian Bale, all of that sort of shit. I completely forgot that. So when I saw all their names in the credits, I was so confused, but the one that threw me was Robert Pattinson. 10 out of 10 choice for the voice casting there. But even in the Japanese dub, you have people who have played other, like, Studio Ghibli characters in this film. Great drawing, because again, this was supposed to be Miyazaki's final film. There's a lot of allusions to the visual and audio history of Studio Ghibli in this film. It is essentially familiarity with a fresh coat of paint, and I love it for that. And finally, the best thing that I love about this film is that they actually made the Heron a likable character who feels like he deserves to be a part of the main group. If you know me, you know my biggest, like, pet peeve with any film, specifically anime films, and specifically Ghibli, is the fact that when it comes to the main group, they have characters who do not feel like they belong in that group whatsoever. This the most present in Howl's Moving Castle when the Witch of the Waste becomes part of the main group. I fucking hate her and don't feel like she deserves to be there whatsoever. Same thing happens in Suzume with the cats. Don't feel like they belong there. Why are they here? They don't have a redeeming quality. To me at least. The Heron has a redemption. Also because he gets, like, shot by Mahito. That is my main thing why I think he gets redemption. That's what I love about the film. Moving on.
So yes, as you can see, I very much liked the artistry and storytelling of the movie. I thought the storytelling was really nice, and I thought the artistry was fucking fantastic. This is what I mean by Ghibli being one of the titans for like Japanese animation, Japanese filmmaking in like the world, essentially. Not even Japanese animation, animation in general. Because just the blending of different art styles together, having that distinct Ghibli feel while still using like 3D rendering and using like watercolor backgrounds and this, that, and the third, as well as it essentially being all digitally made, while having that Ghibli stamp. Fantastic. I love it. I absolutely fucking adore it. But now we're gonna go into what I disliked, and there's not a whole lot. Actually, a lot of these are just my gripes with Ghibli films in general. I'm first of all gonna actually talk about the art and stylization. This being that the stylization of the film kind of drops off during the middle. Like, it's very prevalent at the start. It's very prevalent at the end. It's kind of just there in the middle. It doesn't really exist, because obviously the style of the film is drawing you in. It's showing you how impressive like the studio is. This is how we do shit. This is how we make the good film. The middle focuses mostly on the story, and while like it still does have its impressive moments, it's nowhere near as impressive as the other moments in the film. The two start and end parts. I guess it is there, but I'd say it's more grand in the start and end, and I'd get it being grand at the end. But when you open with this grand stylization and it doesn't thread through until the very, very end, and you kind of just get like very pretty visuals, very, very pretty, but not the same stylization as the very start. It was a little disappointing, but also like I was too mentally involved with the film to kind of notice until afterwards, until I was really, really thinking about it. But yeah, that's one of my main critiques, is that the stylization kind of drops off in the film, and I haven't watched this a second time. I would like to go back and watch it a second time, but movie tickets are fucking expensive. I would have liked the stylization, especially with the fire at the start, throughout the entire film. The main time we see the fire stylization is in Himi, but it's not entirely there. The next time we truly see the same kind of stylization is in the delivery room with Natsuko, when Natsuko tries to go leave and then is prevented from leaving. Next, I don't really have any real technical critiques. I've already talked about what I liked. There's nothing that I really hate, like even with that stylization drop thing. Again, I wasn't focused on that. I only made that critique because I needed to make a technical critique personally. I felt like I need to, and yes, I did notice it at some point, but it isn't immediately noticeable. So the only real technical critique I had is that they went from really dark scenes to really light scenes and flashbanged us so many times. I didn't need to be flashbanged so much by a Studio Ghibli film. Sure, when I watch it during the middle of the day, they'll be fine, but I'm in a very, very dark cinema. Please don't do that in your films. Anyway, of course, these are two main critiques that I see often within Ghibli films, or I make often within Ghibli films. There are actions that I feel like they were made without justification. I felt that a lot in Howl's Moving Castle, but it took me several watches to actually understand why those were being made. And I get that, like, adds to the longevity of the film and the rewatchability of the film, but it's still annoying. There's so many questions left unanswered. I will say, for this film, it connected together so well, much easier than any other Ghibli film that I have watched on first watch have. As I have said in the past, when I watched Howl's Moving Castle, I had no clue it was a romance in the first place. I just thought it was very platonic. with like Spirited Away. I did not get it at all until like the third or fourth watch. Same with Ponyo. This is the first Studio Ghibli film where I got everything right away. Yes, there is still questions I have, more so about things that weren't answered or questions that weren't really asked in the movie. There is a lot of connections in this film that can be made so easily, and I don't know if it's because I've been watching so much Studio Ghibli shit, but like, it's very easily digestible, this film. That being said, there is so many actions I still don't understand have been made without justification. Like, why does Mahito just suddenly like say that Natsuko is like his mother straight after she said she hated him? She's saying, go away, I fucking hate you, don't want you near me. Which also, we don't get why she hates him. I'm guessing it's a vulnerability thing, and I would understand that. But why does he suddenly be like, you're my mother? You're my mother. I get it's clearly, the film is clearly like a message of childhood trauma, grief, moving on, starting new, all shit Ghibli has done before. This is more explicit than any other Ghibli film, but this is all stuff that Ghibli has touched on before. And I get that the moment Natsuko, the moment Mahito recognizes Natsuko as his mother, this scene is extremely reminiscent of the fire scene from the very start of the film. It probably reminded him of his mother, and that helped him make a mental connection or some shit. I don't understand. Personally, do not understand why there's the sudden shift up in Mahito thinking Natsuko as his mother. There is actions at the start of the film that can justify it, but it's never really answered. Also, what's not answered is how much does Natsuko know about the world of the tower, especially if, like, say Himi said she forgot all the stuff in the tower. It's mentioned in the film that Himi doesn't really remember why she was missing for a year. Of course she could be lying. She could totally 100% be lying, and it's inferred that she's probably lying. But, like, how does Natsuko know to protect Mahito from the tower? How much does she know? That stuff isn't answered, but that stuff is justifiable as to why Mahito could think of Natsuko as his mother. But we don't see enough of that with Natsuko. Like, we don't see that many moments of Natsuko caring for Mahito enough to justify us, from Mahito's perspective, thinking that Natsuko is Mahito's mother. You know, it's really confusing, but like, we don't see enough justification for certain actions. Same with Mahito going off to try and fight the heron in the first place. We get maybe 2 or 3, not even 2 or 3, we get 1 or 2 instances of the heron being creepy, and that's what sets Mahito off. Mahito just goes to the end of the garden for some reason, doesn't even see the tower, but that is what makes him see the tower. There are a lot of actions where you are like, why are you doing that? It feels a little forced for plot progression. And some actions make sense, some of them don't, but a lot of the actions feel like they're made without justification. That is my main point. That is something that happens in a lot of Studio Ghibli films. Then you have the heron. What is the heron? How did the heron come into existence? Is it some sort of magical elf man? What is the heron? I don't know if there's more context given in the actual, like, Japanese dub, where, like, the subs would explain more, or if it's just straight up not asked what the heron is. Because the heron is a shapeshifter. I'm missing something with this fucking heron. Where is it from? Is it from the tower? Is it not from the tower? Where does it disappear into? It's a charm? Is it a demon? What is the heron? I would like to have known where the heron had come from. I'm assuming it's one of the creatures of the tower, but why can it pass through the tower and live in the real world and do this, that, and the third? I don't know that part. The heron just exists. and I want to know more about this fucking thing. Anyway, it's kind of like Totoro. You don't know why Totoro exists, he just exists. But unlike Totoro, the heron's annoying. I want to know more about him. Yeah, that's pretty much all of my critiques and what I didn't like. Again, this story is very clear a message of childhood trauma, grief, moving on, death, starting new, stuff like that. As I've said, singing the praises of this film, I really did enjoy it, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't already, to go and watch this film. I honestly love it. It's one of my new... I haven't said this. It's one of my new favorite Studio Ghibli films. And it's honestly, like, probably one of a new classic for the Studio Ghibli repertoire, because it's just genuinely that good to me. It's not like this big grand adventure story, there's not a lot of action, but also there's enough where it could be described as an action story in some extent, and it also doesn't overstay its welcome. I've said that a lot. I've said that a lot with films, but you can't feel the time when watching this film. Same with a lot of Studio Ghibli films, but particularly this film as well. It leaves you wanting more, and knowing Studio Ghibli, there's not going to be a sequel. So wanting more is all you're ever going to feel. That is all for my review today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What did you guys think of The Boy and the Heron? If you have watched it at this point, I am currently filming this 2 weeks before this video is supposed to go up. So I'm very curious. If you have seen it, what your thoughts are. Are you going to see it if you haven't already? I would absolutely recommend that you do. And yeah, if you haven't already, please hit like and subscribe. I am uploading every day of December, and having it being the 20th when this is uploaded, we don't have a lot more of December left. So if you want to get on this bandwagon before I go back to uploading once a week, then please do hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the next video of Upload Every Day December. Thank you for watching. Bye.